All right. Hello out there. Welcome to the Howler Mouse channel, impromptu show on a Friday afternoon. It is 11/24/2023 for you people in the future. And we're starting at 2:41 Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving yesterday or great day in general if you're not in the country here of the States where we have our great Turkey Day, where everybody eats and everything, right? So basically, over the past few weeks, I've gotten a few books, and as you can tell from whatever I made the title of this, there's no secrets. I got some great key books, and right off the bat, it's John Byrne, it's Dark Phoenix Saga, super great price. No other way to make that sound fancy. Plus, another key book that's a great first appearance. And the first appearance is something that I sort of put out into the universe a few weeks ago, and the universe put it in front of me. That's exactly how it feels. And then, like, there's some other books to kind of fill this in. Little things I found interesting. Something like 14 books for $10 that I found here and there leading up to that, and a few little odds and ends because there's just so much more to this hobby and my interest than just comic books. So I'm glad you can join me here, right? Sleepy from the turkey, then just unwind here with me and we'll talk about some books and stuff, right? So speaking of books, this has really blew my mind because I don't know if there's a lot of people out there around my age watching this. I know there are a few, and I know you by name more than likely. But 1996 being 27 years ago, kind of flips me out because there are things that I was like, oh, I'll get around to reading that, or I'll finish this, or I'll pick it up. And then here we are. And I'm like, well, I never did. Um, so the first thing that I want to show is something that I went ahead and instead of like getting on the line and I played around a little bit on eBay and things like that. And with the original copies of a book that actually came out in 1996, as you can see, the sticker there, it was re-released because of the Sandman Netflix series. So basically, this is a collection of stories that was overseen by Neil Gaiman, and he gives each story in here a little bit of an introduction. But this is in the midst, the to me maybe the peak Vertigo, if you're into that and stuff, right? But he comes in here and there's a bunch of authors that came in and they each did a short story on a member of the Endless. If you are into Neil Gaiman's Sandman, right? So we come in here and tons of stories in this, and I think they took quite a few stories. This is called Sandman Book of Dreams. I think there was like Endless Nights, and then there's a hardback that I may or may not grab. Yeah, I'll go ahead and grab it since we're all friends here. Yeah, Endless Nights, where there was another collection of endless stories by other authors that ended up in this. They were adaptations of some of the better stories. I'm sure I have that book here somewhere. But anyway, this has got to be, this is fantastic. This is going to be my reading. A death story, frontispiece, Death by Clive Barker, then a preface, and then all of these short stories by many, many authors. And so I'm really looking excited to reading these. Like I said, they're not by Neil Gaiman, but these are overseen by Neil Gaiman. And here's my very cool bookmark for this book, if you will. So yeah, I'm going to be working my way through this. I haven't read this much of the book. I'm skipping around, reading a few things. Fantastic stuff so far. So yeah, the fact that I remember that coming out, it dried up. Okay, it was gone, and I was like, oh, I'll be able to get that. And I'd always kind of keep an eye out for it here and there when it came to buying other Neil Gaiman books. Good Omen I read in 1990 when it came out. I actually read that twice during the summer between my junior and senior year. And I picked up Neverwhere and Smoke and Mirrors, all this other Neil Gaiman stuff. It just never got around to getting that or looking for it. So yes, I bought it retail, something that hardly ever happens here, right? Also, I'm not the toy collector, the action figure collector that I once was. I think when I get rid of it, 2006, I got rid of my my action figures collection, if you will, right? And it was actually as you should have seen the room. It was records, the comic books, and then the figures all stacked up. And I went ahead and I sold them around 2006 and 2007. Sold a 300-piece Star Wars set. Tons of McFarlane toys like the Beatles and I can't remember what they were. I don't know if they were Medieval Spawn or whatever they were, things like that. Vintage toys, of course. I actually have a few pictures where I got rid of what was left over around 2014 or 15. I found pictures on my Facebook and memories and stuff. I got rid of some of that stuff. But I have about 3 or 4 bins. And as you see, I'll collect things as I run across them because it's always been there. The era I grew up, I hated being, how can I say this? Well, the $5 allowance to get my own toys and stuff like that, I had to pick and choose really hard, but it was a great time because of the variety, and you would find them on sale and stuff like that, right? So all these outlet store that I talk about, where real, the bigger stores, the franchises and stuff will liquidate, get rid of things, and then the outlet store gets them, and they're so much cheaper. They came out with a series of Ghostbuster figures that I just had to get. They were fantastic. They weren't based on the cartoons, they were based on the movie. And I got 3 of them, and I'm like, of course, Egon would not be the one to see, right? So when I found these people, I was at the mall, at a local mall that's about 30 miles from me. And while I was there, I usually get some comics off of these people, right? They, I get great deals because I bought off them so long when they set up. They set up at flea markets, they travel throughout the state, and they hit the neighboring states to Virginia and stuff. And I bought comics, went and did my shopping with the family. And then as I was walking by on the other side of their tables, they had like a square setup, a bunch of tables. I looked down and they had this, the one I needed and stuff, right? So I got a really good deal for this, $10 for Egon. And as you can see, I now have a full set. This is going to go into storage. I got the bin out there ready to go. Yeah, just like I said, they're based on the movie. I prefer to have these instead of the cartoon ones and stuff like that. And plus, I'm more of a fan of the movies from the 80s. Yes, even Ghostbusters 2. Oh my goodness, hold on. Always getting a call in the middle of this. Anyway, so yeah, enough of that. I mean, every now and then something will grab my eye, and it was great to see this liquidated and stuff like that, right? Okay, when it comes to the cartoon, I think it's on Amazon Prime or one of the streaming services. I'm picking them up bits and pieces there, here and there. I think Mark Evanier and J. Michael Straczynski wrote a few episodes. So yeah, I'm having a bit more of an appreciation for the 80s cartoon. I didn't like the soft animation that's shipped overseas. I don't know if it's Korea or it's Asian definitely. I like angles. I like sharp angles and stuff, and it was just really soft, and it's an aesthetic that really bothers me. Right, that's why I'm real choosy about what anime I've watched in the past and manga. It's one of the things that's kept me from being a huge fan. Oh, what is this? We got Tommy T. Dog Glendale. Your boyfriend is a great fan of comic books. Awesome. What was the name of the comic book you mentioned about Captain Bunny? There's Captain Carrot in the Amazing Zoo Crew, Thunder Bunny, and John C. is there. Make sure you like, thumb it up, hit that thumbs up, like the video, make sure you're subscribed, and definitely hit that bell to know when I'm going to do this stuff. Yes, thank you, John. He likes the Ghostbuster figure, right? So moving right along, getting to the good stuff here. And I think most of it is good stuff, right? But I'm finding these online, great discounts, right? The Epic Collections by Marvel is about the best thing that I think they are putting out. Okay. The first 6 volumes of, and this is, oh, where's the number? This is volume 4. I now have 3 of the first 6, all right? Because I'm kind of taking my time getting these and stuff, right? But the first 6 volumes are the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby stuff. And if I had my way, I would just say it's the Jack Kirby stuff, right? Because I'm that guy. But anyway, this is around the era where I read most of my stepdad's comics in the late 70s, early 80s. And this is most of the Jack Kirby stuff around this era that he had. This is the era where they brought in him / Eric Warlock, Black Panther. I think there's Silver Surfer, Doctor Doom. This was the majority of what he still had left over from his collection. For you guys that are new or haven't heard the story or anything like that, he collected comics in the 60s. He still did have X-Men #3, some Fantastic Four stuff, if you will. And when he went off into the Navy, his mother did exactly what bunch of mothers did with all their stuff, which is why so much stuff from the 60s and 70s is collectible, including, toys and things like that, not just comics. Threw it all out. But he grew up in a coal mining town where it was literally a road cut through the woods, and people would have a house here on one side and they would cut out and have a driveway and cut out, and it went for miles like that. So when he came back from the Navy and he went to see his friends, they would all be sitting around and his friends would reach down and pull up his comic books and read it in front of him. He did reclaim a bunch of them by the time he married my mom. And over the years, I kept those. And then 2011, when I was moving out of Roanoke, Virginia by myself, loading up a U-Haul by myself, running back and forth into the apartment back, trying not to get ripped off, 2 boxes of comics ended up being ripped off. And in that box, not only was it like this huge Hulk collection, but it was the Kirby Silver Age Fantastic Four stuff. Oh, yes, yes. I've had many years to get over that, right? So this is the way I'm going to be getting all of it. I have 3 of them out of the 6, paying around $20 a piece. They were $40 when they came out. Some of these go out of print, and the resale price is huge on some of them. So that's why I'm just sort of taking my time, keeping an eye out for some great things. These are fantastic. They tell you exactly what volume it is. Come on. They tell you what years they are reprinting. There we go, 66 to 67. And right here, it'll tell you exactly what is being reprinted. Simple, easy, and it's out of there. But I have a whole shelf of these epic collections. I'm real picky about what I get because I would buy them all up if I had a chance, right? Okay, so around 1968, this book came out, a Gold Key Walt Disney's comic and stories. Okay, I'm getting into getting these older books and the feel of everything. But what's pretty cool about this is it's 1968. Things were much more scandalous back then and everything, right? And of course, this would be, assuming that in the 60s, they still felt that comics was for kids and kids were collecting these. But what really cracks me up is when you get back here, there's an advertisement. And in that advertisement, it says comic books for sale. And what you would do is you would send a quarter for a catalog to the address they provide. And look what they have in big letters there, 1968. Their catalog is not just going to have complete runs of DC and Marvel comics, but it's going to have every Playboy in it from 1953 to 1967. So you didn't have to go into the store and be judged and everything, or however they got and get that subscription and have that mailman know exactly what you were getting. You could just get this kid's comic and get the catalog and order them that way. I think that's hilarious. I think it's absolutely hilarious, man. All right, so another thing I picked up here, let me put this to the side. Right here is, I may track these down. Now, Rock and Roll Comics came out, I can't remember if it was the late 80s or early 90s, but I was there. I was actually able to find a few of them. I got the first issue, which was, I think, Guns N' Roses. And then I picked up the Kiss. These were all unauthorized biographies. I have a few collections down here, and they ran for quite a while. And they got talked about. They were Revolutionary Comics, is what they were called. Excuse me, it was Rock and Roll Comics, Revolutionary Comics, unauthorized and proud of it. Where they would just bring in people, and they would do like these real indie feels where it feels like somebody was drawing this in their kitchen and stuff, doing the histories of the biographies unauthorized of any and every band going on. I saw everything from New Kids to the Block to the Misfits, and Sex Pistols and things like that. But apparently when it came to the Beatles got their own 8-issue series, and this is number 3 of 8. I've never seen these, and if I have run across them, I didn't know it was an 8-issue series, right? But I got this because it was part of a lot of comics. I got, like I said, 14 comics for $10 on this one. So yeah, I dig the Beatles, and I am really having this surreal moment where we have new Donovan music. We have a new album by the Rolling Stones. The Beatles put out a new song, and Dolly Parton just dropped a rock and roll album where she sings with a ton of people: Elton John, Steve Tyler, Sting, Paul McCartney. Wow, what a time. I mean, these people who are in their 70s and 80s are putting out some of the best music out there, still. So yeah, ultimate respect. It's a great time to be alive here. All right, so going through that, Law Dog and Grimrod. For some reason, Alien Legion #1 from the Epic line has popped. I've got a beat up copy or two, maybe two around here, because I've been playing back and forth over. I've been getting into the Epic line of comics that Marvel put out in the '80s, right? Archie Goodwin looked over them, and it was different books like Moon. What was it? Moonshadow. Am I remembering this right? Moonshadow, Swords of Swashbucklers. Things like that, right? And this is a one shot from one of those books. I think Carl Potts wrote these and stuff, but it was like the French Foreign Legion in space. And apparently Grimrod was the big one. And they came out with a one shot in the 90s and stuff, right? So that stuff hung on for a while. Apparently, there's a mini series that came out where they reprinted a lot of Marvel's monster books. This one is Monster Menace #1 from the early 90s. And it reprints a ton of like Steve Ditko horror books and stuff, I guess, from the 50s and early 60s and whatnot, right? I was on the Fossils live show on Graphic Man's channel. When I held this up, everybody knew what it was. So these great monster stories, reprints from the past, are fantastic. And then I had to get this, right? Because the 90s was a great time. And believe it or not, as I was cleaning things up and organizing things and trying to get this house in order, downstairs and everything, I found some old TV guides, and I opened it up and I got to see the Saturday morning lineup, at least from around 1993 and 94 for Fox. I just kind of looked at that for the Fox station, and talked about a renaissance of Saturday morning cartoons and stuff. And part of that renaissance was by Savage Steve Holland. The guy wrote and I think directed one of my favorite 80s movies, Better Off Dead. I want my $2. That might ring a bell for you, right? And then he did this cartoon, and he ended up working on The Big Bang Theory. He's apparently had one of those. He and the creator, well, my mama going blank. He and the creator of the Tick, Ben Edlund, they just have this fantastic career that cracks me up. And the only reason I track it or I'll catch their names is because these guys are comic book people, But anyway, there was a 3-issue series of Eek the Cat through Hamilton Comics. I haven't heard of this company ever before. This is the 90s. There was 3 issues. I have all 3 of them. Like I said, Eek the Cat was hilarious. There's a ton of Fox cartoons as they were getting their feet off the ground there for like the first 5 years that came and went. But this is one that I thought was fantastic and should have been a staple of the place. A lot of the success that Fox had, looking back on it, ended up being the comic book stuff. They had the X-Men, they had Batman, they had the Tick, Big Guy and Rusty the Robot, Men in Black, things like that. They really did well, right? So as I'm going through these comics in this book while we're trying to kind of shop and everything, just get out a little bit. My wife, she knows that I'm going to take off when I see these things. And it was so funny because she actually kind of walked up, snuck up behind me, pinched my butt, just trying to trick me there, having a little fun, came up and she looked down right where I stopped flipping through the box and was like, ooh, Beavis and Butthead, right? So, and if you guys don't know, Paramount Plus put out some new episodes of Beavis and Butthead last year. They should be there to stream. But I got issue number 5 through Marvel Comics of MTV's Beavis and Butthead. There you go. Not a lot needs to be said. All right, and then there's things where it's Sam Keith. I will grab Sam Keith at any time. Sam Keith, again, feel like we're very 90s centric here. Sam Keith, I love his style. You can see the Baudet. You can see the Arthur Pseudonym. You can see a lot of the influence he has. And then just his style is uniquely his. So here's Batman's Secrets from 2005, #1. This was a 5-issue miniseries. So yeah, anytime that we can have some Sam Keith and a lot of Sam Keith stuff, except for the Max, I end up looking more at the art than paying attention to the story. Right. I grabbed some of these because they were there. I didn't really need them, but I'll probably will try to back up. But what was it? 1984. I'm 11 years old. I had watched Star Trek on the antenna. That's how far back we go. And I would catch it on Sundays. Now, Sunday mornings in the late 70s, going into the early 80s a little bit, you could, I don't know, around noon, you would get an episode of Star Trek, the 60s show, the original, and then it would be followed up with a Godzilla episode, right? And then sometimes I think they might have shown another episode of Star Trek. I don't really remember, right? So anyway, when this in 1984, you had the Gold Key books. I think there were some adaptions of the movies, whatever. But in '84, I bought #1 issue of Star Trek. It had a George Perez cover. I think it was written by Mike W. Barr. Well, I didn't keep getting the book, but it was a #1. And then all of a sudden, I found a few issues of that run. I think this ran from '84 to about '88, '89 before they booted it over. And these were fun. Walter, I can't think the guy that played Chekhov, Walter Koenig. He did one issue. Peter David came in, did about a year. Mike Carlin did. They had different writing teams, but I highly recommend the Peter David ones because Peter David actually ended up doing some Star Trek original novels and maybe an adaptation here and there. So yeah, just a little bit of Star Trek here. I don't think I'm going to go deep diving here, but I'll probably definitely try to get depending on the writing team, And we're about to get to the good stuff here after this, but I've had runs and issues of this and then getting rid of them and going back and forth. I think it's time just to kind of keep this because I keep going back to it. But yeah, some early issues of Nexus here, which I was very surprised to find. But actually, I passed these up from the same person I bought these off of a few years ago, and over the years, excuse me, these have stayed in the box, and I finally picked them up. But it was Nexus #2 or #2, excuse me, number 12, 14, and 41. This is some great Steve Rude art from the early '80s into mid '80s, and number 40. Just a lot of great stuff there, right? So now we are at the key books and the great stuff. This is the vintage stuff. This is going to be some Jack Kirby, a Spider-Man, and of course we're going to end it with the Dark Phoenix saga. So hang in there. Okay. What's your favorite comic book of all times, including manga? I go back and forth. Probably Commandy by Jack Kirby or Starman by James Robinson, Tony Harris, and everybody that followed along after that in the '90s. Excuse me. All right, so let's get into this, right? So I ended up getting 9 issues of 16 of this, not all at once, here and there over the years. So I may just go ahead and finish it up because I am a Kirby nut. And surprisingly, if I remember right, this is the series that Jack Kirby did not want to do. And it's actually one of his best that I've really been impressed of. I mean, it's Edgren, and Edgren's the demon, but Clarion, the witch boy, turns out to be one of my favorite characters in comics, just amazing here, right? And this is one where he pops up. So I think I found this for $1. Now, what's wild about this is that these set of books I've seen at an antique shop for a couple months, and they were marked $5, $3, things like that. All of a sudden, I'm popping up after haven't been there in about 2 months, I think, and now they're all $1 a piece. All the stickers and stuff are off, and I got these for $1 a piece. So here's the Demon number 14. And like I said, I passed these up. I'm going to end up having a short box of just Western stuff, right? So anyway, from 1971, we have Tomahawk 131. Some great Western stuff here. Joe Kubert. I'm not big on Westerns, but I mean, look at these. These are fantastic. $1 a piece in fantastic shape. So I mean, great stuff. I mean, this is still technically Silver Age stuff. The Bronze Age was about 2 years away. So yeah, all day long. Great ambush cover there. And I love that fantastic blues and purples and stuff, man. That really takes me back. So that was some good stuff, right? Now this next series, make sure here, we're having a technical issue here. So anyway, this next issue here that I want to show you, I forgot it was in here. So if you've watched this channel over at least the last year and a half, I would do live shows. I would talk about things, complain about modern comics and stuff, and whine here and there and all that stuff. Then people in the audience would be like, you have to read Immortal Hulk. Right. So I picked up some Immortal Hulk. I ended up finding little thin trades here and there, maybe an issue or two here and there at the flea market. And I was like, this book isn't that spectacular, but this is as good as almost every book was in like the late '80s that were on the stands. And then I got to sit down. Found some more of these comics for $1 and stuff, and or the director's cut for issue 1 and 2. So I had enough issues to where like I would skip maybe an issue or two, but I probably read like the first 12. And doing it that way, I was like, I was wrong. This is fantastic. Thus far, this thing is amazing. It's great. But like I said, at the flea markets, I would find tons of them for $1 a piece. If you go to Amazon, my Instagram, Howler Mouse on Instagram, I put up my CLZ app picture. You will see this #1 issue I'm about to show. And then when you swipe, you will see that I have like 56 assorted of issues. To have a complete run of 1 through 50, I think I just need 12 issues now. So when I would go to a dealer like a week or two after I went to a flea market, I'd go to a little Comic-Con and find some Immortal Hulk, and they would have $30 to $40 on them. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. And they would come with attitude while I was talking to them, right? So I decided to make this a game saying I will get 1 through 50 for $1 a piece if I can. And some were cheaper because I would buy lots of comics, 25 comics for $20, things like that, right? So this one, I found the director's cut #1 and 2 for $1 a piece, right? And then apparently I have this thing, guys. I have insomnia. I sleep maybe 4 hours at a time if I'm lucky, right? And that'll get to you sometimes. And I've gotten on my phone. I have ordered things from Amazon and I have ordered from eBay and completely forgot about it. So thank goodness that when I found out that I got that alert saying your package has been delivered, I found this for $8. I don't think that kills the game, okay? But this was for $8. Immortal Hulk #1. Um, you know, great series. I've already read it in the director's cut and stuff right that or like that. But $8 for this book, I think this is fantastic because apparently it's #2. No, this is worth a little bit, but apparently it's #2 that's going to be the challenge. Apparently that one seems to be worth more than Immortal Hulk #1, and I love that because that's going old school back to the 70s and 80s. Because back in the day, everybody would get a #1, and people would order more of the #1, and then they would start ordering less and less of each issue. We're talking about your comic book shops and stuff. And when that happened, it made #2 and #3 issues spike up. And it was not that long ago, well, for me, that things like Prime #2 actually ended up being worth money because there was plenty of #1s. It was #2 and 3 as they cut the orders down. That would make the second issues go up. That's some old school shit right there, guys. All right. Oh wow, okay. Now this is the book that I put it out in the universe, right? And I don't even know why. Okay, I was going through some of these books, rearranging things. I've got now, I was able to get my mini series out, put them in a short box. I'm able to. These are the Marvel miniseries, and these are the DC miniseries, and over here's the crossovers. Having these short boxes and rearranging things, and then I started realizing that I really did not do the deep dive into Cloak and Dagger, but that is such an '80s book. I mean, that is a book that came out in the '80s. It is of the '80s, and you can feel it, right? But what I didn't like is that it was so drug centric, street drugs. It was the Reagan era where it was just say no. And apparently, if I remember right, Cloak and Dagger got hold of some street drugs. Dagger was the rich girl, and Cloak was the street kid, and they got kidnapped. And somebody experimented with. They had this drug, so they used it to experiment on them with to see if it was going to kill them, and it triggered their mutant powers. And one happened to be light, and one happened to be dark, and they fit like a glove. Isn't that convenient? So that's one of the reasons I kind of stayed away from Cloak and Dagger. You know what I mean? I was just sort of like, yeah, whatever. Plus, they were a direct market book, so it wasn't that hard. I think they did have a 10-issue series to hit the newsstand. They came and went. And then they ended up in Strange Tales it's sharing a book with Doctor Strange by the late 80s. But anyway, this book is a key that has held its value. And a lot of people don't realize, I don't know if it was Hulu. There were some shows that came out based on comics like The Runaways. I'm almost positive Cloak and Dagger had their show. And I think they were on Hulu or something, but there's a reason you haven't heard of them. They are very forgettable. And I know I've watched about 15 minutes of several shows that I was just like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. I'm not wasting my time. So anyway, I found this for a great deal. And this set of books that I got with these X-Men books, these came from the same place. And the guy has done me right. I bought off him before. I got a Killing Joke volume 1 original, first print, things like that. Here and there I've gotten a few things off of him, traded a bunch of books and stuff, and for some reason I slipped up. I offered my price. I said, I'll give you this much for all these, and then I went and I added $20 for it to the price I was going to pay, and that's what he took. So I could have got these for $20 cheaper. Now, thanks to spec channels, and that's exactly what I'm blaming here. This person does, I think he does have I think he did say he watches videos, but he's into cards. He's got a flat screen TV set up in his shop. He deals mostly in sports cards and stuff, right? And he does watch the video YouTube channels and stuff like that. But what I'm noticing, or going to these little cons and stuff, is that there are still tons of people out there collecting comics, right? A lot of people are now indifferent. This has been going on for years of how bad the mainstream books have gotten. But you go down there and people are getting the back issues, and they're collecting books they always meant to fill in, to complete and run into the gaps and stuff, right? And then there's like this secondary market, which is really odd, right? But you got like these spec channels and stuff. Comic Tom, Jim Mint Collectibles, a little bit of Swaggle House. None of them, there's tons of them, but none of them ever match, okay, of what their top 10 is or what the hot books are. And the other thing is a lot of those books never really hold a value. So it blows my mind right now that I see people going after the 10 books at a time. Keep an eye out for them. I guess it's FOMO or something like that. People don't tune into the channels to see those guys. It's a greed thing. They want to see what the collectible books are now that are really hot, check what they have, whatever. Normally, I'd say there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the hobby. That's not all of the hobby. When you make that all of the hobby, you're in for disaster. I lived through it and saw it through the 90s. It's no different, okay? Just a lot more to it with Marvel movies and stuff. And a lot of the back issue markets dropped. And just for somebody who's stuff, one of the reasons a lot of the issues dropped to begin with is, number one, I keep telling people the market doesn't work that way. I got a video from 2-3 years ago where I'm like, look out for speculators. They're like, I give you reasons to not listen to speculators and to watch yourself. I think Danny DeVito is a car salesman's in the thumbnail. But the thing is that the She-Hulk TV show was the beginning of the end for the current market of books holding values and stuff. And this happened 10 years ago with Marvel when they had a Punisher series out. I got a video from 2013 or 14 where I'm flipping out on something. Tiger Shark and the Punisher. So I've seen all this before, is what I'm trying to say. We keep repeating ourselves. But the She-Hulk show, to get back what's going on, if you guys can go back and remember, everybody was going after the Wrecking Crew, the first appearance of the Wrecking Crew, because they heard it was going to be on the She-Hulk TV show. And then everybody was after the first appearance of Titania from Secret Wars and things like that. So I saw people spend a lot of money where I'm shaking my head going, the Wrecking Crew? Really? To me, this is just common sense. Right now, the last 2-3 months, everybody's been going after Biker Mice from Mars, number one from the 90s. Just say this stuff out loud. I can't believe that's what we're seeing here. Anyway, so the Wrecking Crew shows up on She-Hulk. Titania shows up on She-Hulk, and they're the butt of a joke. And now everybody spent their money, and they're like, oh my God. And it's like everybody was so embarrassed, nobody spoke of it again, right? So that's what happens when you have characters and you don't respect them, okay? The first, 2008, when did from Iron Man all the way to Endgame, that I think came out in 2018 or 19, can't remember. But anyway, you've got a good, I guess, solid 11 years there, I think, 11 years, I think, of them having good tones with most of the movies, taking most of those characters serious. I mean, they took Batrick the Leaper serious in a Captain America movie. Think about that, right? Anyway, but they kept them serious, and that's why some books would pop and people would get excited. And now they do these shows where the characters end up being the butt of jokes. The other thing is about that She-Hulk thing, and I'll move on to the X-Men books. The thing about that She-Hulk series that really bothered, that I knew was going to happen, is they were following the John Byrne comic. That John, in issue 50 of Sensational She-Hulk by John Byrne, You find out that the very book you are holding, that whole series of She-Hulk, isn't a real comic book. It's not in continuity of the Marvel comics we have access to. We are getting a sample of what a comic book looks like in the Marvel universe. It's meta. That's why she was breaking the fourth law. The things they were talking about and referencing, like they knew they were a comic book, was because they were a comic. And it's established in Fantastic Four, I think when Kirby was on there, and I think John Byrne might have churched it. I'm not sure. I'm doing this from the fly here, right? But they did say that they had like a little bit of a relationship, you know, merchandising themselves to where they will meet with somebody from Marvel, tell them about their adventure, and they would put it in a comic book. So they're based the show off of, I know they did Dan Slott. I never watched the show. I just heard enough people complain about it and stuff, but I know they based a little bit of Dan Slott stuff and a lot of stuff by John Byrne when it went sideways and people finally had enough. So they were watching a show based on a comic that had nothing to do with the Marvel universe, technically. So there you go. Now, speaking of John Byrne, we are here with these. So I would like to thank all the spec channels for having people looking for books like Biker Mice from Mars. What is it? The Dazzler right now, X-Men 130. So that books like this are sitting around. If you actually watch the spec channel, see what everybody's going to be looking for and go the other way and have a little bit of patience, keep your eyes open, build your skills of actually knowing what the key books and important stories are and stuff like that, it will pay off. You're building a skill that a whole generation of collectors, if they want to call themselves that, are not building. They're too dependent on apps and these spec channels and stuff, right? So anyway, I was able to get these super cheap compared to what they are worth. Sorry, guys. We are we are in the middle of fall, coming around the corner to winter, and I have one gnat in this room. So anyway, here we are, beautiful copies of issues 131, 132, and I've read these. I've had my hands on one or two of these over the years that weren't mine. They were my friends. But then I had Classic X-Men / X-Men Classic where they reprinted them. I'm going to go through my box, but that's where I've read the entire Dark Phoenix saga for the first time, is when they were reprinted there, right? So this is the first appearance of the Hellfire Club. And this also has the famous last panel of Wolverine in the sewer, three-quarter view at you, popping his claws, getting ready. You know, he's going to mess somebody up. In the next issue, in 133, I believe this is the first solo Wolverine cover ever, if you will. And this is in beautiful shape. But this is the one that looks like it is not off the rack. It is straight off the printer. Glossy, creamy pages. I mean, this is a 43-year-old book that I'm just like, it looks better than some other stuff I've seen, new, if you will, right? But 134, and like I said, these were a steal for what I got them. This has one staple issue where the staple is just looks like it's starting to rust a little bit. Nothing to be real concerned about. I'll just find another book from 1980 and switch it out if I need to. And so this is a great book also. Look at that, 136, classic cover. And 137, my second copy of this. And I can never find a great copy of this, right? This has some issues on the spine, as you can see. I don't know if I'd call that rolled, but it's definitely flattened. And we got some splitting down here on the bottom of this. But when you have the whole set there, why not? You know, so yeah, I have another copy of this, and it's a little beat up. So 137 and 138 seem to be the two books that, you know, they're becoming an albatross around my back to get a decent copy. I haven't been this nuts since G.I. Joe Yearbook #2 by Mike Golden. So I can never find a decent copy of that book. If I do find a decent copy, I end up getting home, reading it, get to the last page, and somebody's cut out the coupon in the back or something, right? So that's it. That is the haul for November. I do have a Gmart haul that is coming in, probably be about 2 weeks, thanks to the holidays. So there'll be that kind of haul. December 2nd in Bristol, Virginia, there is a Tri-Cities Comic-Con coming. I think this is their third or fourth year in the area. May go to that. Last year's show was a little bit weak. So I haven't made up my mind if I'm going to that or not. Hopefully we'll get to see a few friends. We can probably take off and get something to eat if the con is not that great. And I'll probably just keep an eye out for eBay and a few things and stuff, right? So everybody be excellent to each other. Thumb up the video. There is a playlist I have somewhere on my channel where a bunch of people got together and we each took a chapter of the Dark Phoenix saga and everybody reviewed it. Sadly enough, was it Red Vitamin Blue, Clouded Journey? Anyway, somebody organized that one and I made a playlist as everybody did their video. So look for that. Howler Mouse Dark Phoenix review playlist. Maybe that's the way to look it up. And there's all kinds of cool playlists, man. Been doing this since 2010, 2011. 2010. It's been quite a few years now, and there's a tons of YouTubers who have come and gone, and their channels are there, and the videos are there. We made playlists, and there's all kinds of stuff to go back and look at and stuff, right? So, not just my channel. Maybe my channel will lead you to other things. So, everybody be excellent to each other. Have a fantastic weekend, and thanks for being here. Share the video. Let people know we're here. All right, later.